Hello everybody. So today is the 26th of April and I will be going through another one of my daily reflections. So I'll just read off it, yeah. Today, I will start the reflection off by remembering some Korean. This is because every night before I sleep, I make it a point to study a bit of Korean. Just try to learn a new language, Even though I probably should be studying Chinese because my Chinese is still quite dog shit. But I chose Korean because two of my boys wanted to do it together, so why not, right? So after Korean, we move on to Bible plans. So this Bible plan, the first one will be God's dream for your life, or for my life, or for whoever's life. Dreams are never fulfilled immediately. There's always a waiting period. That's the main theme for the plan, and they gave some examples. First one is Abraham had the dream of being the father of a great nation, but he had to wait 90 years before he even had a son. Imagine having such a great dream, but having no offspring to really carry out that dream for you. Yeah, which is what Abraham had to go through, I guess. Next one is Noah. Noah had the dream of building an ark, but it took him 120 years. That's crazy to think about, right? The other day I was having a conversation with Augie and Lionel, and Augie was telling us, shit, imagine Noah, dude. He believed in God so much that one day out of the blue, it was just a normal day back in that time, he decided to start to build an ark. And this ark is so huge, it can fit an animal of every species in it. Imagine the size of the ark, right? And he just believed in God to that great of an extent, which is quite crazy, right? And here it says it took him 120 years. So people must have definitely thought he had some screws loose, right? Because nobody in their right mind would build such a big boat on dry land for 120 years. So kudos to Noah. Anyway, next one we have the Israelites, who were brought out of Egypt, then wandered around for 40 years before they went to the promised land. Although it's only about a 2-week walk between Egypt and Israel. Yeah, so anyway, the promised land is Israel, and the Israelites were brought out of Egypt on a journey to the promised land, but they took 40 years to reach, even though the journey by distance is only about a 2-week walk. Not only lah, but it's a solid 2-week walk. But it's a big contrast, 40 years and 2 weeks. So I guess the lesson behind this is God uses delays to get us ready for difficulties. He gives us more time to prepare. So I guess reflecting on this, in my case, I have a lot of time before uni starts. So I write here that God is giving me lots of time to prepare for uni by allowing me to properly cultivate my spiritual life a few months beforehand. I think what I mean by that is just build the good habit of squeezing in some time to do daily reflections on holy material, to really build my spiritual life before I enter uni, where time would be I think time would be a constraint, but I'm not sure. I haven't been in yet. It's an assumption. Anyways, so how should you respond when your dream is delayed? Well, don't fear. Fear keeps you in the wilderness. It prolongs the delay. Many of your dreams have never been fulfilled, not because of God, but because you haven't stepped out in faith. So I guess what this is saying is, if you have a dream, go for it, because Life is too short, you know. Just go for it. You have nothing to lose anyway. Don't let fear stop you. You don't want fear to be your biggest regret. The main reason why you never set out to accomplish your dream in the first place, right? Yeah. Step out in faith. Just have faith that God is there to catch you when you fall. It's hard to do, but just do it. See what happens, you know? So anyway, the antidote to fear is to focus on God's presence. Realize that God is with you. He says, "Fear not, for I am with you." Isaiah 41:10a. I haven't figured it out still, man. I mean, maybe somebody can tell me. Whoever watches this, you know. Probably no one, but we'll see. He is with you now, and he always has been and always will be. That is reassuring to know, but also difficult to grasp because, as we all know, God is not the most tangible being, right? He is in the air, omnipotent, omnipresent, but not really that physical, you know? Some of you are in the delay phase, including me. You have been praying about something, but to no avail. God knows what you are going through, and He hasn't forgotten you. He wants to build your character and wants you to learn to trust in Him. You can count on Him for His help. Don't fear. So that was the first plan. Okay, now for the second plan. The second plan is on trusting God's process. So, it starts off with this. You will have moments of weakness that test your faith and commitment. Your flesh will decide to take the path of least resistance, and the world will be your guide. In other words, I guess you fall into temptation. Happens to everyone, including me, especially me. I'm a victim of this quite often, not gonna lie. Anyways, Proverbs, let's just say chapter 11 verse 28, speaks to the consequences of trusting in riches and other things instead of God. The verse says that when we do this, we will fall. No doubt trusting in the world leads to failure. When we decide to trust God, there's a safety that guards us. How encouraging is that? Oh, that's what I wrote. I don't really feel the encouragement, but you know, I think back then I must have felt it. Let me read it again. Okay, I'll read it aloud. When we decide to trust God, there is a safety net that guards us. How encouraging is that? Yeah, guess I'll give it a shot. Nothing to lose. Anyway, such a blessing to know God on our side, through thick and thin. This was a reminder to keep your trust in God, through the good, the bad, and the ugly. You will always regret not trusting Him, but you will never regret not having done so. I can get behind that. Nothing to lose, right? Anyways, yeah, that was a rather short plan. Next, we move on to the takeaways from today's Mass, the 26th of April. So, the Archbishop talked about stories today. Here goes. If we don't live and tell our story, stories can be about our past, our present, and the future, then we can't create personal relationships. Stories gel us together. They are like glue. Find time to tell others your story. Broken and hurtful stories bring great healing. So I guess what this means is if you tell somebody your troubles, how you might be struggling in your life, then a great burden would be lifted off your shoulders, you know, because then somebody else can share that burden with you. Or not somebody else, but other people. And personally, I can testify that this is true because, yeah, I like to tell my stories, as you guys can probably infer. Yeah, don't shoulder the burden alone. It's not meant for you alone. share it with others, It's not being selfish. I wonder what it is. I guess I'll pray about that. It might be a coping mechanism, but a good one. People want to help you. Yeah. Tell me your story. I'll listen. Anyway, so the first step is to tell your story. The second step is to connect, relate to the story so that life becomes meaningful. In other words, I guess interpret, understand the story. Unless you articulate your pains, you cannot heal. So say, I guess somebody is telling me their story, then I would have to make sense of the story. So I guess I would ask him or her some questions about the story and really get to know the struggles or the pains that they are going through, so I can help them, get behind them. Okay, anyway, Archbishop said that meaningless suffering leads to depression and negativity. I guess meaningless suffering could be suffering without purpose. I guess going through a 9-to-5 job every day despite hating it, despite the lack of selflessness and progression involved in that job, that could be suffering. Yeah. Meaningful suffering, however, is part of the salvific plan of God. I'm not sure whether that's a word, but I'm quite sure it's the word that he used. So I'll use it as well. Suffering is good. It means that great things are in store for us. Life which does not bring about a contribution to society is just not worth living. That's what the Archbishop said, and I guess I can get behind that as well. Yep. I think life is best lived when it's lived for others, right? If you live for yourself, then how can you truly be happy, So I guess my contribution to society could be these videos, which I'm quite sure nobody would see, but we'll see. Number 3. So number 1 was tell your story. Number 2 is connect, relate to the story. This is number 3, which is we need to celebrate our stories. And he continued to elaborate on this point by saying that's why we have to celebrate the Eucharist every Sunday at least, because it helps us relive our stories. But honestly, I'm still not convinced, I'm still not sure. I'll pray about that. Yeah. Anyway, the Eucharist is basically the body of Christ represented by the white bread. Yeah. When we encounter the presence of God, we begin to share/celebrate our stories. Yeah, I can testify to that. In conclusion, tell me your story. Or you could tell your loved ones your story. It really does help. Try it out. See your story in the light of God's love and His divine plan for you. So I guess what this means is, don't let your story just be a story, but try to relate it to how God has a plan for you. So example would be in my case, got fired recently from my part-time job, and that's a story on its own. But if I want to link it to how it ties into God's plan for me, I would definitely link it to this. If I hadn't gotten fired, I wouldn't have started doing daily reflections, wouldn't have been able to catch up with my family and friends, and wouldn't have been able to spread God's word through this avenue. So, that's how it ties into God's plan. And that's it for today. Thanks for watching.